Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stream. I hope everybody's had a lovely week and enjoying the weekend. Whew, yeah, it's good to be back. Hope you enjoyed the last review that I did. Yeah, that was an interesting one to do, and yeah, I've got some more sort of lined up. I haven't really started on anything yet, but I will hopefully at least get the viewing done this weekend and get started on actually writing that up. So hopefully it won't be too long. I'm just getting to the weekends right now, and I'm just kind of like, oh god, takes everything I've got. Just to kind of motivate myself at the moment, just because it just feels like really long weeks. Good evening, Adam. Good evening, Blue Iris. Good to see you here. I guess we'll start with just a few pickups, things that I've been getting along the way. I did buy a little too much this time around. But given what we watched on the previous stream, Footprints on the Moon, I picked it up on Blu-ray. Shameless label. Actually, one of the better Shameless releases, it has to be said. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I totally get that. It is a very slow one, but it is an interesting film, and it's only a 12 as well, which is kind of surprising. Well, not really surprising when you see the film, but for whatever reason, I thought it was going to be a bit more. I thought it was a really interesting film. I might even review this at some point soon, because I think it's worth a bit of a deep dive. Decent film. I was very happy that we actually kind of sat down and watched it together, because that was quite an experience. I thought it was really good. Thank you, Adam. I'm watching Carrie, not at the moment, obviously, but I've got most of the way through it, and I'm just sort of watching the last 20 minutes of the film. Still got that to watch. I'm potentially. It looks like we might be doing this. The musical version of this at work, and yes, it's a bit of an oddity, isn't it? Thinking of Carrie as a musical, but there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff to sort of have a play with. I think from a theatre technical point of view, loads of projection and special effects and stuff like that, and maybe the very unusual for us, a few pyrotechnics maybe, which would be quite fun. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I've been rewatching the film, and I forgot how good a film it was, and how great Sissy Spacek in particular is in the film. It's a absolutely fascinating film. It is one I really should do some writing about, and I think it's mostly because I think, although it's a film that's been kind of explored an awful lot, that a lot of people have written about it. There's aspects of it that I would like to talk about that I've never really sort of heard people talk about. Just kind of like, what is the point of view of the film, and kind of like where the writing's coming from, that kind of stuff. Because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that's actually happening within the film, and the subtext, and kind of what the film is actually about. Other than just the stuff which is right there out front. So there's a ton to write about with this film. So hopefully, that's another candidate, really. Not a horror film, but I did get Trading Places, which I've always enjoyed this film. I must say it's a very breezy film, to say the least. I think I've forgotten quite how that was. It really does rocket through its story. It doesn't hang around. It probably to its detriment somewhat, if anything, because it does kind of go from A to Z very fast. It doesn't hang around. It doesn't pause. In that regard, it feels a little bit forced, but the comedy's great, and I always love somebody made the comparison between this and Pygmalion, otherwise known as My Fair Lady, and there's a lot of similarities in the dynamics of what happens to the characters and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it was a great film. It was a great film. Funny enough, I kind of watched that on the strength of another play that we're doing this December, which is about Enron. So I wanted to see if there was anything in there with the stock exchange kind of stuff that maybe I could lift for that kind of show. It's a little bit sideways, but there you go. I can't remember if I showed this one. I picked this one up. Marquise de Sade. It's basically the Portrait of Doriana Gray, Jess Franco film. Haven't seen it, I don't think. So I picked it up on DVD, and that will be one of the near future Franco files, just because, yeah. Speaking of which, I also picked up this one, which is, another candidate for one of the next Franco files, A Secret Diary of an Nymphomaniac, otherwise known as a Sinner. It wasn't too expensive, thankfully. I've been looking around at some of them. You get some of the Blu-rays and DVDs, and they're like 50, 60 quid. And it's like, oh shit, okay. But I've got no idea about this one. I don't really know anything about it. I do remember seeing the subtitle of The Secret Diary of an Nymphomaniac as one of the alternate titles, and it perks your interest. I mean, talking about the previous one, it's just like it's a bit of a weird mix, because obviously you got the Portrait of Dorian Gray connection and the Marquis de Sade. I'm not quite sure how that meshes somehow. It's a little bit weird, but there you go. Another one is Fright Night, because I watched it when I was around with my brother for my birthday, and I figured I'd pick it up on Blu-ray. It wasn't too expensive, but I do really like this film. I do really enjoy. I remember enjoying it back in the day when we got it out of VHS, and had a lot of fun with that. So that's a great fun film. And the one which I spent far too much money on, which I really owed myself a long time ago, which is the special Ultimate Edition of Day of the Dead. So I'm looking forward to looking at a bunch of the extras and stuff on there. Hopefully, at some point, I do mean to. I do mean to do that as a watch along. Hopefully with John. So I've just got to talk to John, and we'll organise when we do it. So yeah, you have the Shameless DVD of Footprints. Yeah, it's a great film. I really, really like that film. It surprised the hell out of me, to be honest with you, because I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I figured I'd enjoy it, because somebody had said, I'm pretty sure somebody had said it was a good film, worth a watch, and I was a bit like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a chance. And I think I originally got it on digital. After we did the watch along, it was like, yeah, I'm gonna pick that up on Blu-ray, because I think it's worthwhile, and I think I'm going to enjoy doing a review of that one, because I think there's a lot to get your teeth into. I mean, the writing, the way that the film's world is presented, is so wonderfully straight through the eyes of that character. It gives an awful lot of clues and ideas and things to think about regarding the story. As low intensity as most of it is, I don't think there was a second I was bored in watching that film. So it was really cool. So obviously tonight we are going to be watching A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. So get your copies and get more queued up, and we will get going in just a few minutes, I guess. So it's probably about the best thing to do. I think it's worth mentioning, obviously, there's been news that I'm not going to go into that. I'm a little bit kind of scatterbrained today, to be honest with you. Just a little bit tired, like it's been a long week. But so there's a whole bunch of that stuff I'm kind of really looking forward to watching. It's going to be a great fun time to to get through that. I don't think we've got too many people on tonight, but that's okay. That's okay. I was going to also, one of the other choices that we were going to watch today was going to be the remake of Suspiria, which I think I might do on the next watch along. So just be aware of that, and if you can get hold of a copy, if you haven't got a copy, it would be worth grabbing that, because I think that would be quite an interesting one to talk about in comparison with the original and the whole remake sort of ideas and that kind of stuff. Because that was a particularly controversial one, obviously. I mean, understandably as well. Everybody was a bit like, kind of like, what do you think you're doing? It's like, taking Citizen Kane and remaking it, just in the horror genre. And I always felt the film was a very worthwhile remake. So it'd be an interesting one just to watch with all of you folks. I think that would be kind of fun to do, don't you? Okay, so I think if everybody starts giving us a thumbs up when you're ready with your copies, I think that would be a good time to start, while I flannel on about something just to kill a little bit of time. I'm not very smooth tonight for some reason. I don't know why that is, but there you go. I guess we can talk a little bit more about the special editions. I mean, this is one of the things with the physical media sort of stuff, is the care that goes into a lot of these packages. It's like that, and I mean, in a lot of these, in fact, there's some great extras on Footprints. There's great extras on here. Funny enough, actually, there was one which incidentally just ties in with the music, because it does have a little something about the musical version, which was quite interesting to watch and relevant for me. But I mean, like this, I've had the Dawn DVDs, the special edition, limited edition, the one in the big box, which is just a great box set. There's just so much care and love put into that. And then I think I've got the Arrow Dawn of the Dead as well, which is a lot the same with a few extra bits and pieces. I mean, they talk about kind of like digital downloads and all that kind of stuff. You're gonna, you'll watch it once or twice and then you don't bother, whatever. And like that's the only release that you're ever gonna need. Whereas it's constantly surprising how much stuff actually finds its way into these kind of packages, the innovation that goes into that. And that's one of the things why I kind of like have such a some people feel I'm kind of extreme on copyright, because I say copyright shouldn't last any more than about 20 to 25 years for a film or a piece of music and that kind of stuff. And the reason is, it's like, they go, well, it should be making money off it all your life. I mean, how many people make something and they're constantly making money out of that one product time again? It's just, film is one of those things which it kind of happens with, or at least it's expected to happen all the time. Now, when you've got like kind of releases, say like George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, where he didn't make a penny out of it for years, really, because of the copyright problem. When home, kind of releases, physical media came out, then he was doing commentaries for it, and they're going out in special edition versions, which is, that is in copyright for however long, So I think that's the way that people should sort of look at these things and innovate new material to supplement what these do. That's what you've got to do. You don't need to have just the original, that's it, boom, boom, boom. See great versions of these films come out with different packaging, basically. Not physical packaging, but with the things that sort of go in them. I mean, it's a whole bunch of stuff on it. It is like, it's two discs and all. That's Blu-ray, so there's a lot of stuff on there. So I'm kind of looking forward to having a bit of a squiz at that tomorrow. So that'll be kind of fun. The Suspiria remake would be an interesting watch along. Ready with the Elm Street Blu-ray. Looking forward to this. It's been a while. Yes. And this is the thing. I think this film is actually one of the more interesting of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. The first one's iconic, and this one this is a good example of what when a sequel should be made, or when it's worthwhile making. I think anyway. I think Freddy is scariest in this sequel before he became more comical in the later sequels. Absolutely. All right, okay, we've got a couple of people are ready to go, so we will get cracking. Stand by your beds, folks. Let's usual thing. Countdown of 3, and we'll go on go. So 3, 2, 1, go. There's that old logo. Isn't it a funny thing? It's a Time Warner company. It always reminds you that these things have these smaller distribution companies, and are just kind of married in with. It's so crossbred in Hollywood. It's kind of funny. I love the metallic credits. It's actually one thing though, isn't it? I mean, the credits on this are much more cinematic than they were in the original. Watching the original again that last time, it was one of those funny things, because every time I revisit it, the more it feels like a made-for-TV kind of film. I don't mean that's necessarily a derogatory kind of thing, but there's a quality to it which actually kind of feels very just very made for TV. I hadn't noticed that Robert Englund was actually the bus driver before. Have definitely got a copy of Suspiria remake. 11 different reasons. Okay. Yeah, I've got a few different versions of Suspiria, the original. It's a weird observation, but it's the layout of American streets with the kind of like garden pavement, grass verge, then the road. Well, we do have a bit of that over here, but it's always something that just kind of like shouts America to me. Fond memories of people walking out of Day of the Dead as zombie got started hitting the floor when it's in the cinema. You're going to school, bitch. Slightly unconvincing opticals. But it doesn't matter, does it? Because it's a dream world. Spoiler. Most of us have seen this film before, so I don't think we're worried too much on that. Feels inspired by Duel, doesn't it? The camera work on some of this. I don't know what the difference in the budgets was, but you do get the feeling the budget on this one was significantly higher than the original. But it's amazing, isn't it? You get a really low budget film like the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and what Wes Craven did with it was very economic. Don't get me wrong when I say like the whole kind of TV, made for TV kind of vibe to it. I mean, it's only really partial. That means it's necessarily bad. It's just there's a quality to it made for TV films, isn't there? And this definitely feels like it's much more aiming for a cinematic feel. Extreme parking, ladies and gentlemen. Only learned recently that David Warner was yes. I think there was a conflict of schedules or something, wasn't it? And then Robert Englund got the role. It's like a really fucked up version of the Italian Job, isn't it? At the end of the ending. If you haven't seen that film, watch it. It's great. He has one hell of a scream. He... Hello, Kieran. There is a very different vibe in some respects to this film than the first one, but the one thing it really does sort of hold on to is the kind of tension, the taking itself seriously. And as was alluded to in chat earlier, the as the sequels went on, even from the third one to an extent, it's not quite fully there, but the sense of humour that was injected into the series became much more overt. And it's like, when you got this character who's like, absolutely supposed to be this terrifying creature, and it's pun, 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 pun all the time, Friday the 13th had, similar issues, although obviously not Jason making puns, but maybe physical versions of, but because it took itself a lot less seriously, it kind of fails to be scary, whereas this is doing something with that. Have an original of that US one sheet of Nightmare 2 if you use it. Oh yes, some great posters from the series, even from like the later ones. It's really cool artwork. And this will be your beard for the film. And this is the thing, isn't it? It's like, I mean, she's gorgeous in this. So I always had kind of a crush on her when I first saw this film. But she's, but the film has a subtext, as many people know. It's another horror that kind of explores certain ideas about sexuality. Does it do it completely successfully? That's a good question. That would be a good question, I think. It certainly approaches some kind of ideas, to say the least. Sad news about Tony Todd. Yes. I mean, I was thinking about him earlier. I think with the remake of Nightmare, it would have been an interesting bit of casting. And this is where Kenny Loggins playing with the boys should be kind of blaring out. Some tight short shorts. No, good luck with that, Kieran. See, that's where humour in these films kind of it works. It's not like kind of it's one thing from characters like this. It's another thing from characters like Freddy, where there can be humour from Freddy. It really did degenerate as it went along. You know. I mean, certainly when it got to the Freddy versus Jason, and there's the whole pinball kind of thing going on. It's like, what the hell? And those films bear so little resemblance to these earlier films. I think it really sort of started losing its kind of direction probably after 3, to be honest with you. Probably with 3 to some degree, but it's still an entertaining film. Most of them are. Most of them are perfectly entertaining. But I just can't find too much excitement about watching a lot of the later ones. Though, you know, I mean, if you want on a future watch on, we can watch some of the later ones, or even make our way through the series at some point. I'm perfectly fine with doing that. On subject of horror movies, sat down and watched Bride of Frankenstein earlier today. A bit overrated, not gonna lie. It kind of depends what you're after, doesn't it, really? I mean, some of that old gothic horror is... it's a bit dated for a lot of people's tastes. I mean, I've never really sort of got massively into like Hammer horror as a for instance. I mean, my taste in horror really sort of started with the kind of like the new wave of horror, the Texas Chainsaw and Night of the Living Dead and that kind of American movement in horror, which then, you know, spilled over into Italy. And Italy at that sort of time was doing a lot of the Dario Argento kind of stuff. It's very different sort of stuff, but you've got some cool lighting in this. This is one of the things I think, particularly with the first 2 films. When I'm banging on about lighting, I guess, again, but they weren't afraid to have shadows, and you know, that's a very appropriate thing for this kind of stuff. It's one of the things I appreciate with like black and white photography is the use of shadows. It's such a powerful thing to have that kind of high contrast. It was kind of one of the things that color filmmaking really sort of got rid of a lot of it. You have to really kind of work hard with color film to get that kind of contrast with the image. Yes, Iris. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, regarding the undertones of this film, um, it is one of the things that I think is so powerful with the horror genre in particular, is that in a relatively mainstream, a very, or relatively popular, I should say, more than anything, uh, film type, that you can have these sort of social messaging go on in them. You can discuss these things. Those who get it, get it. Those who don't. I mean, it's nothing new to cinema, but horror seems to be particularly good at handling that kind of stuff. Isn't it funny when it comes to just any horror film, particularly horror films that depict school kids, and they're always like kind of in their like well in their 20s. It was one of the things with Carrie, because Sissy Spacek was like 25 when she filmed this, and I think most of them were around about that age. So when you see the opening sequence, if you haven't seen Carrie, the opening sequence is quite something, to say the least. The shower sequence is it is a controversial scene in some respects, not least because of what happens to Carrie during it. But it has that male gaze thing going on with these naked schoolgirls in the showers and stuff like that, and it's a bit like uncomfortable to say the least. But it's played along with this romantic music and all this kind of stuff, and you know, in that respect, it's one of those films. It's very hard to sort of classify in terms of, could you consider it to be a feminist film, or is it a misogynistic film, or is it this, or is it that, or is it the other? The film is very ambiguous, and you bring a lot of yourself to that movie. But it's interesting because certainly when it comes to what the film's actually about, a lot of that stuff begins to kind of make sense. Otherwise, he's going to get sent down to the basement to clean the zombie pods. It is a very sexually charged film, though. This is one I see. Actually, it's something that has Carrie has a similar kind of thing in a way. Um, this film in particular, because of some of the subtext to it, it does a lot of that. It kind of, in a way, sort of speaks to the age group of who these characters are supposed to be. You can kind of identify a lot more with it. Carrie's playing at my local cinema on Halloween night, as I learned yesterday. It's funny because the director in this, the di- sorry, it's a funny sequence. The director of this claims he didn't really kind of think about any of these undertones that everybody sort of picked up on, but the writer and the actor here basically kind of had him sneak in, which I'm not entirely convinced that the director wasn't aware. He must have been incredibly naive, if particularly given some of the later scenes in this film. Actually planning on going to the cinema a bit more this month. Jura 2, The Substance, and Anona. Looks good. Okay, cool. Little bit of exposition. She's spying on me? There's always fun practical effects in the nightmare films, as it should be. I'm no kind of like prude when it comes to CG and all that kind of stuff. It has its place, but I've always, and I think I always will, feel that it should be there to augment, not replace. And there's something in the whole kind of process of even just of making this stuff sort of happen, which is a reward in its own right for the audience as well as the people that actually make it. Speaking of Carrie, I found it amazing that King threw the draft pages in the bin. Wife retrieved it, convincing him to approach the publishers with the story. Yeah, she helped him with a more female perspective as well. It's funny. I was talking about that to the lecturer who's hopefully directing this particular thing. And I said, for me, Carrie is a coming of age story as much as anything else, and she seemed genuinely surprised. I says, well, you've got like It and Stand by Me. It's not a new thing for Stephen King, and that is one approach to the film is as a coming of age film, just a very, very kind of fucked up coming of age story, as is Stephen King's way. It is one of the things he's done really, really well. I think some of his best stories have been that sort of thing. Yikes. That's to be said, that thing on the sideboard looked a little bit suspect. we should do a watch along and carry at some point, I guess. That would be quite a good one to do. There's lots to talk about in that film. I do love the fact that even in this, because as the series went on, we know the humour got much more pronounced. But in these, like first two in particular, this whole sort of transition into the dream world is handled really really well. Because you don't, when you're in a dream, you don't realise you're in a dream. Obviously, you don't. You take it at face value, and things seem normal, and then they just get weirder and weirder and weirder. It's only really when you wake up that you go, that's kind of out there. But at the time, it feels perfectly natural. It's something that's kind of all too often kind of screwed up when it comes to like dream sequences. It's obvious from the very very start. I mean, it's kind of obvious in this. There's some pretty outrageous sort of stuff going on, but it's not like really, really, really insane stuff until like now, as if, for instance, This is Jesse on the phone. Make it easy to cut up carrots. You just go. I mean, visually, this film holds up quite well, doesn't it? It's even like the costumes and stuff don't look out. I mean, they're a little dated, but don't feel outrageously so. I mean, other than when they were playing baseball and stuff like that, those shorts are very very much at the time. He has a game called Probe. Look at the stuff now. Just a perfectly sold joke, isn't it? What's the difference between baseball and softball? I've played a bit of. I've never really played baseball, but I played softball. I can't imagine a baseball is much softer than a softball. Much harder than a softball. We get a little nod to Hitchcock here, aren't we? It's just, ooh, okay. That's bad trill. This. I vaguely heard of the substance, but I've not really. I don't really know much about it. Some people said. I think people have been saying good things about it. It's not my workplace. It goes temperature-wise. It goes from the sublime to the ridiculous. Oh, that's why you should always put your washing up away. Clearly, this place doesn't have a dress code. ID. I think this scene is like just a really good example of what I was talking about. The whole kind of like you're not knowing what is going on in a dream, just accepting it for what it is. Just only half aware of it being a bit kind of out there. Oh, hello, Sailor. Robert Shea played the barman. I did not know that. I mean, when you have moments like this, you do wonder why the director would claim that he had no idea about any kind of undertones within this movie. I mean, it is kind of cliched, but I think to some degree they were kind of forcing the issue a little bit. Probably less so with the than they do with the writing. Well, more so than they do with the writing. I'm not sure, Kieran. Hello, Kerry. Oh, ties the Ipsies. I think one of the interesting things about this film is as much as anything, it's this sort of confusion that the character has about what's going on. It's much more part of what's going on in what's in the original film, and the whole kind of Freddy taking over him sort of thing, and that's a lot where the subtext kind of comes from, not just that really overt stuff with him in the leather gear and that kind of thing. But there's things that are happening with the character and his perception of what's going on around, and arguably the point of view of the film, if you like, there, who's telling the story. All of that's quite quite strong in this movie. In the unrated version, it's the other way around. For an audience that really, isn't primed to kind of see that stuff or will sort of reject it, there's a very different reading of the film. Best of the sequels, Cassie Klugalga as the dad, gave me a kick up the ass. He to watch his other movies. Yes, he's a fun actor to watch. Oh wow, okay. I hope you get well soon, Kerry. Got to be careful. Excuse me. You go this kind of almost a parody of the kind of like traditional dad sort of thing going on as well, haven't you? Which is an interesting aspect. Just trying to catch some of those posters in the background. Oop. I'll just play him a few Black Sabbath albums. He'll soon be up for it. It's kind of funny in some respects how much the feel of the movies has sort of changed for me personally over the years. Because with the first two, they were always like kind of like when I first sort of watched them, there was always that kind of feeling of anticipation of being kind of challenged by the movie. If you know what I mean, it's like the first time you watch something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in your head you're sort of going, okay, this is described as being a scary movie, and I'm kind of, you get that anticipation. And with the later ones, it was very much, yeah, I'm going to watch another one. You know, you never really had that kind of sense that you were watching a horror movie, really. The Elm Street franchise was my first foray into Hollywood horror. I love the characters, and Freddy is such an evil prick, but sadly all franchises, they go downhill fast. Yes, they do. Generally speaking. People in this film don't seem that freaked out by the stuff happening. See, and that's the thing, because you're watching this film very much from his point of view. Just shut the toaster in the sink and turn the tap on. Yeah, you're watching this story unfold. Really, it's his perspective. What was efficient? But yeah, you're watching it from his point of view, so it's kind of everybody who's sort of in the periphery don't really kind of see stuff in the same way that he does, and they will rationalize some of the stuff that's going on, where his kind of thoughts and feelings, which are sort of presented by the way the story's told, mean those things are much more pronounced. Which is, it kind of does sort of nod to decent directing, decent writing, and decent acting. Yeah, but they didn't exist, Kerry. They were a dream. I mean, it's funny, the more I talk to people about that whole kind of like psychological perspective of storytelling, it so often goes over people's heads. And it's not to say that, I'm so smart, but I don't know if it's but like, when I explain that, sometimes people don't get where I'm coming from, or think I'm just pulling that out my ass. But I think it's important. But I've been watching enough films, and I've written, more importantly, written about so many films now, and explored that kind of idea, that it makes a lot more sense to me when you kind of approach a film from that angle, if you like. Imagine telling Coach Schneider that you've left your gym kit at home. Oh my god, yeah. Underpants it is then, lads. See, that's the thing, Iris. It's like because all of that is from Jesse's point of view, or at least his kind of, how he perceives these things to go. Yes, the character is not physically in that part of the scene, but if you think about it, basically, like he's recalling kind of what happened. Even stuff that he doesn't see, it's all part of the world that he kind of perceives. Some fine mullets going on there, yes. But like I say, oh yeah, you got those clues and stuff of when it was made, but it doesn't feel so massively dated in those kind of respects. It's one of the things I actually admire about the original Star Wars trilogy is there's very little in that actually kind of feels particularly late 70s. There's bits and pieces, sure, but most of the costumes and stuff like that don't feel very indicative of that era. I suppose in a way this is the male take on the locker room scene from Carrie. You could almost look at it that way, I guess. Funny enough, you say the plug it up thing. I mean, it does remind me just how powerful that story actually is. Just the cruelty towards Carrie in that scene is quite heartbreaking. It's just him speaking with his mouth full. It's just. I mean, he is comic relief, but he's not like, just absolutely horribly in your face when it comes to that stuff. But it's kind of funny. When you look at it from the sort of in the closet kind of angle with that character, I mean, this scene kind of takes a different tone to some extent. Because these are sort of conversations that, people will have when, coming out and struggling with just basic conversation of kind of feelings and things like that. It's going to be a very confusing sort of time. Because you get, like, I guess, a certain self-denial to some extent. Or at least an unwillingness to accept. Speaking of De Palma, I watched Sisters not long ago. Yeah, I've got that on my shelf back there, actually. Now he gets to be the sausage jockey. That character is definitely named Chad. Hey Simon, down the pub. Nice. Hope there's a good band on, mate. Oh yeah, is it karaoke tonight, Simon? Yeah, I think because the lights have gone out doesn't mean that they go deaf. It's like a military operation, isn't it? Absolutely, Simon. You have a lovely evening. What part are we at? Basically, they're just about to get at it. Party and sex scene. And a very big tongue. No, don't hide it. Make use of it, mate. You definitely have said too much, Iris. Oh, enjoy yourself, Carrie. See, that line never really kind of made any sense. Something inside my body, yeah, she's female and she's in the cabana. Um, does he have an idea how that works? I mean, of course, he's left a girl that wants to sleep with him to go to the guy. Just watch me sleep. Maybe Jesse's into pegging. It's like a game of name that movie. He wants to get inside you, dude. Jesse going about in his PJs. He does a lot of that, doesn't he? I mean, maybe yeah, the part of me wonders is like kind of like because he does. He's always going around in these things that look like his PJs. It's a very good observation. Um, how does that work within the entire movie? Oh, that's it. It's a very interesting image, isn't it? The eyeball in the mouth. I think the Lamal poster is probably dating this somewhat, isn't it? He doesn't strike me as a Lamal fan either, but there you go. It's an interesting sort of Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing, isn't it? Going on with the story to some degree. This monster within. Just what you're saying about lights going off, making me. Yeah, we're a bit further on. We are currently about 1 hour in. Isn't it much more effective when Freddy doesn't spend all his time just telling, doing the puns? See, one of the things that was really kind of missed, generally speaking, I think this film particularly highlights it, is kind of the whole idea of Freddy is such a great way to kind of tell real stories, kind of much more interesting stories. Sort of approach subject matter, because he can be what you want him to be. And instead, we tended to get a lot of just, well, cheap kills and puns. And I don't think the remake really did anything particularly different. In fact, actually, from the remake, I'd only watched it once, but I do seem to remember they tried to humanise Freddy somewhat, which was a little bit kind of bit of a mistake. Oh, flame grilled. That is not how beer is supposed to be used. It's funny, isn't it, between these two characters? There's very, very little sexual chemistry. I mean, it's kind of notable. They've, I mean, aside from that one scene, they don't really seem that hot and heavy for each other, do they? Just like good friends more than anything. She's very accepting of it. This party sucks, doesn't it? Oh, Freddy's only weakness is a table lamp. See, they missed a trick in Dream Warriors, didn't they? They should have just all come in armed with table lamps. the pool has all just gone kind of crazy, and Freddie's chasing her around the house at the moment. That's where we're at, Kieran. See, you'll never make it in the slasher world, love. There's just not enough action behind that knife. It's a hell of an exit. Mind your nose on that parquet flooring. Yeah, it's expensive stuff. I just wanted to continue partying at this point. Just pull a complete Animal House type thing. Ooh. The little optical effect of the when he grabs the fence and it starts glowing. It's a little cheesy. Still kind of works, you know. I mean, it's not bad by any means, but yeah. It's one of those things. It's like when you get practical effects and all that kind of stuff. It's very easy to end up judging it, isn't it? But it's like it's part of the joy of the films. Now we're at the help yourself fucker. Cheesy optical effects are always amusing, from wacky Hong Kong movies to Hellraiser. I I find it part of the charm of the films as well. It's a terrible shot with a shotgun. Love will save you, Freddy. It's a League of Gentlemen nod there, Blue Iris. You're all my wife now, Dave. Not sure if that's a bandage or a fashion accessory. See, I like that the dogs are just kind of like they look so weird, but it kind of plays with what's going on. So if any of you guys do like any urban exploring and all this kind of stuff, you'll know that getting on a site like this would be actually quite difficult. She just drives in. Go in there with a camera with no ill intent, and that's it. You've got about 15 security guards chasing you. Invasion of the Body Snatchers 78 reference with the dogs. It's got that vibe, hasn't it? Oh, that's a superior lighting. You know you're in a bad place now. See, the thing where she comes around the corner, she like grabs that pipe, and it just burns her hand. It's just everything about this environment that she's in. And just a small thing like that just explains kind of like how horrible this place is and how dangerous and. See, this is a funny thing with this whole sequence. It's like because now you've got this shift in perspective. It's now more her rather than Jesse. Jesse's gone at this point, so it's kind of flipped the narrative somewhat. And it's kind of interesting because she's like living in this particular world that he's been subjected to, and she's going through a lot of the same kind of thing. Which is kind of interesting because it's sort of treating the two characters um, with a certain amount of the same kind of respect, if you like. I wonder how they filmed they filmed in industrial zones in Man Bite Stock. Oh, I've got no idea. I mean, one would assume they'd have permission to do it, but oh, he's not such a badass. Even love softens his heart. Quite a few videos of urban explorers having really sketchy encounters with vagrants and other persons. So it's not just them. There's thieves and stuff in those buildings as well. They call them scrappers. Um, I love doing photography in places like that, but yeah, It's a bit stressful. By the power of heterosexual love, was restored to Elm Street. Yes. Yikes, I think the plumbing around there needs sorting out. That's a great effect, isn't it? It just turned into goo. It's a bloody hell. Well, it's no wonder that place is abandoned. That's his Ghostbusters moment, you see. Surprised you don't know anything about Man Bites Dog. It's just not a film I've really got around to. I mean, I meant to, but I just never got around to it. I think Kevin Yeager complained about the way Jack Shoulder oversaw the editing on Freddy's death. Kiss me, I'm crusty. The question is, are they just really good friends now? Or is it? Is it actually all over? It's kind of fun that the film actually sort of comes in this big cycle like this, isn't it? So it ends up where it began. After all this, she was friend zoned. Well, she gets a peck out of it. The shock ending. But does that mean that she's gay as well? So, I mean, I'm basically not quite sure whether the story is entirely coherent, but there's a lot of sort of stuff that's just going on in there with the, regards Jerry's, regarding his kind of sexuality and all that sort of stuff. It's really there, but it's just, does it tie it up quite fully? It doesn't. At least it's ambiguous. I guess the ending is in general ambiguous, but yeah, that was quite good fun. It's been a while. The nightmare becomes a reality, or does it? Or is he still kind of drifting in and out of the dream world? Is it Inception? Does this spin in top four? Who knows? But yeah. Oh, funny enough, because I'm watching this on Prime, it's come up with next up, and it's Virgin Among the Living Dead. It's actually quite a good film. But anyway, I think we'll call it an evening there. But yeah, that was good watching. So I think next time, like I say, we'll probably watch Suspiria, the remake. I think that might be quite a good one to do. There's a few other options which we can think about as well. So anybody who's on the Ramblaholics, feel free to sort of pop by and yeah, maybe drop a suggestion in once in a while, that kind of stuff. Might try and do it next week. Not sure. If not, the next week after that. I might try and get some work done on the next video over the next weekend. But we will see, and I will let people know as soon as I can. But I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was actually quite fun to watch that one. It's really kind of one of the, along with the first one, the two best Nightmare on Elm Street. The first one has it over this one just a little bit, but I do really admire the kind of the stuff with the subtext or subtextual kind of stuff which goes on in this film, which it definitely has over the first film. But yeah, we shall leave it there. Thanks for tonight's stream. Nice chatting with you. Yes, it's been lovely to chat with everybody. So everybody, have a good weekend. Enjoy the rest of your evening, whatever you're doing. If you're catching another movie or just hitting the sack, or like me, probably just going to get another beer. But until next time, look after yourselves. Have a good time. Try not to work too hard, and let's watch another movie soon. So till then, bye bye.